Have you ever felt like life is testing you, pushing you to your limits with one challenge after another? Perhaps it was a hurtful remark from someone you trusted, or maybe a moment when everything seemed to go wrong no matter how hard you tried. In those moments, did you wonder, how can I rise above this? Let me take you on a journey, not one where you escape life's chaos, but where you learn to thrive within it. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm, not as someone battered by the winds, but as someone steady and calm, observing the beauty of the swirling clouds. This is the promise of Buddhist philosophy. Not an escape from life struggles, but a profound transformation in how you approach them. Today, we'll explore 10 principles that act as a guide to this inner strength. These aren't abstract ideas or lofty ideals, but practical tools that anyone can use to find peace amidst life's noise. Together, we'll uncover how to turn insults into opportunities, embrace acceptance, and build a life rooted in gratitude and balance. So, I invite you to sit back, take a deep breath, and join me in this shared exploration. Let's not rush through these ideas, but allow them to settle, like seeds planted in fertile soil. Because within each principle lies the potential to shift how you see the world and yourself. Are you ready to take that first step toward a life of unshakable peace? Transform insults into opportunities. Imagine for a moment, you're walking down a busy street, your mind buzzing with plans for the day, when suddenly a stranger hurls an insult your way. It's unprovoked, unnecessary, and deeply unsettling. How do you react? Do you lash out, let anger flare, or carry the sting of those words with you for hours, or even days? Most of us, caught in the heat of the moment, feel the weight of such encounters lingering long after they've passed. But what if those harsh words weren't a wound to nurse but a gift in disguise? In Buddhist philosophy, insults are seen as mirrors, reflections not of who you are but of the person speaking them. The Buddha himself often faced ridicule and hostility from those who feared or misunderstood his teachings. Yet, he remained calm, unmoved. He saw these moments as opportunities, not to defend himself but to grow in patience, compassion, and wisdom. His response was simple yet profound. If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does it belong? The power to accept or reject negativity lies entirely in your hands. Let's bring this principle to life with the story of Mahatma Gandhi. Throughout his life, Gandhi was subjected to relentless criticism and insult, often in ways designed to provoke anger or humiliation. During the Indian independence movement, detractors labeled him weak, naive, or even traitorous for his insistence on nonviolence. In one instance, while riding a train, a man insulted Gandhi for his choice of simple attire, sneering, "How can you represent us dressed like that?" Gandhi could have snapped back or allowed the insult to shake his confidence. Instead, he smiled gently and responded, "I am representing millions who cannot afford even this." His calm, reflective response not only diffused the tension, but also reminded everyone of the deeper truth he lived by, his solidarity with the poor. This ability to transform an insult into an opportunity requires more than self-control. It demands a shift in perspective. Insults often reveal more about the insulter than the insulted. A harsh word may stem from someone's frustration, insecurity, or pain. By recognizing this, you can step back from the sting of the words and instead focus on understanding the person behind them. This doesn't mean condoning bad behavior, but reframing your reaction. It's no longer about you. It's about choosing growth over grievance. A personal moment comes to mind. Years ago, during a heated workplace discussion, a colleague criticized my ideas harshly, calling them pointless and unoriginal. The words struck a nerve, and I felt the rush of defensiveness bubbling up. But then I paused and asked myself, what can I learn from this? After reflecting, I realized that their frustration wasn't entirely baseless. My presentation lacked clarity in certain areas. Instead of retaliating, I took the criticism as an opportunity to refine my approach. The result? A stronger proposal and a newfound ability to handle difficult feedback with grace. This practice of transforming insults into opportunities also strengthens emotional resilience. Think of it like building a muscle. Each time you choose to respond with patience instead of anger, you grow stronger. Each moment of grace in the face of negativity fortifies your inner peace. Over time, the barbs of the world lose their sting, and you find yourself less reactive, more grounded. Yet, this isn't always easy. There will be moments when the words hit too close to home, triggering old wounds or insecurities. In these instances, the Buddhist concept of mindfulness becomes invaluable. By observing your emotional response without judgment, you create space between the insult and your reaction. You begin to see the insult as just another wave in the ocean of experience, rising, cresting, and eventually dissolving. It doesn't define you. It doesn't diminish you. It simply is. There's also a deeper compassion that emerges from this practice. When you see insults as reflections of the other person's inner turmoil, you begin to empathize with their struggle. Perhaps the person who snapped at you in traffic is overwhelmed by stress, or the colleague who dismissed your ideas is battling their own insecurities. This shift from judgment to empathy doesn't just soften your response, it transforms your entire outlook on human interaction. Consider this. Every insult is an invitation to strengthen your character. The next time someone's words pierce your calm, try this simple exercise. Pause and breathe. Ask yourself, what can I learn here? Perhaps it's an opportunity to practice patience, to examine your own triggers, or to extend compassion to someone in pain. By doing this, you reclaim your power. You are no longer a victim of the insult. You are its master, turning its sharp edges into tools for growth. The beauty of this practice is that it extends far beyond handling insults. It reshapes how you engage with the world. Instead of reacting impulsively, you become intentional. Instead of being pulled by the negativity of others, you remain anchored in your own peace. Over time, you'll find that the chaos around you has less sway over the calm within you. So, the next time life throws an insult your way, remember, it's not a battle to fight, but a lesson to embrace. Each harsh word is an opportunity, a test of your patience, a chance to grow your empathy, and an invitation to transform the energy of negativity into the strength of wisdom. And as you walk this path, you'll discover that even the sharpest words can shape you into a person of unshakable grace. Your emotions are yours to control. There's a quiet power in knowing that no one can control how you feel. Yet, in the chaos of everyday life, it's easy to forget. A sharp word from a coworker, a dismissive glance from a friend, or even an unkind comment online can stir emotions we don't always understand. Why is it that someone else's fleeting action can linger in our minds, sometimes even for days? The Buddha taught that our emotions arise from within, not from the outside world. This realization is both liberating and challenging, for it places the responsibility of emotional well-being squarely on our shoulders. Picture a calm lake on a still morning. The water is smooth, reflective, and undisturbed. But when someone throws a pebble, ripples spread across the surface. The pebble, the external trigger, is not the cause of chaos. It's the water's reaction that creates the disturbance. Our emotions are much like that water. When we allow external opinions, words, or actions to dictate how we feel, we are handing over the piece of our inner lake to the whims of others. This wisdom is echoed in the life of Oprah Winfrey, a modern figure who has spoken candidly about not giving power to external opinions. Early in her career, Oprah faced criticism that would have crushed many. She was told she wasn't fit for television, her appearance was scrutinized, and her ideas dismissed. Instead of internalizing those judgments, she chose to focus on her inner values, her belief in authenticity, her mission to inspire, and her unyielding sense of purpose. By rooting her sense of self in what she knew to be true, she rose above the noise and built an empire that resonates with millions worldwide. But how does one learn to separate external triggers from internal responses? It begins with mindfulness. When someone criticizes you, the initial instinct might be to react defensively or feel hurt. Instead, pause and ask yourself, why does this bother me? Often, the answer lies not in the other person's words, but in your own insecurities. Maybe their comment touched a nerve because it aligns with a fear you've been carrying. By identifying the root of your discomfort, you take the first step toward mastering your emotional response. I remember a personal experience that taught me this lesson vividly. Years ago, a close friend made a cutting remark about my work. It wasn't intended to be cruel, but it stung nonetheless. I spent days replaying their words, feeling a mix of anger and doubt. Then one morning, while journaling, I asked myself, why am I giving so much power to this comment? Slowly, I realized it wasn't about their opinion at all. It was my own fear of not being good enough that had taken hold. With that clarity, I was able to let go of the emotional weight and even thank my friend for unknowingly helping me confront something I needed to address. The Buddhist teachings remind us that criticism and praise are two sides of the same coin. Neither defines us. Both are fleeting, subjective, and often more about the speaker than the recipient. Just as criticism doesn't diminish your worth, praise doesn't enhance it. Clinging to either is like chasing shadows, always leaving you at the mercy of someone else's perceptions. The true work lies in cultivating a stable sense of self, one that isn't swayed by external validation or rejection. Imagine standing in a crowded room, each person offering an opinion about who you are. One says you're brilliant, another calls you ordinary, a third points out your flaws, while someone else praises your strengths. The noise is overwhelming. But what if you could tune it out and focus solely on the quiet voice within, the one that knows your worth without needing confirmation? This is the practice of emotional independence, learning to trust yourself above all else. There's an immense freedom in reclaiming your emotions. When you stop letting others dictate how you feel, you become unshakable. A rude comment no longer derails your day. A lack of recognition doesn't make you question your abilities. Instead, you respond from a place of strength, choosing calm over chaos. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending negativity doesn't exist. It means acknowledging your emotions, understanding their source, and deciding not to let them control you. One way to practice this is through intentional reflection. The next time you feel upset by someone's words or actions, take a moment to pause. Breathe deeply and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Why does this bother me? Is this about them, or is it about me? Write down your thoughts if you can. Often, the act of putting emotions into words helps diffuse their intensity. With time, you'll notice a shift. You'll begin to see emotional triggers as opportunities for self-awareness rather than sources of distress. This practice doesn't just benefit you. It transforms your relationships too. When you stop reacting defensively or seeking validation, you create space for healthier connections. You're no longer projecting your insecurities onto others or demanding that they fill gaps only you can fill. Instead, you bring a sense of wholeness and authenticity to your interactions, allowing others to do the same. As you cultivate this emotional independence, you'll discover an inner peace that isn't tied to the external world. The Buddha likened it to a mountain standing firm amidst the wind, unmoved by praise or blame, joy or sorrow. This state of equanimity doesn't happen overnight, but with practice, it becomes your natural way of being. There's a simple yet powerful truth in all of this. Your emotions are yours to control. No one else holds that power unless you give it to them. By choosing to pause, reflect, and respond with intention, you reclaim your peace and create a life that's grounded in clarity and self-trust. Demand excellence of yourself, grace for others. In a quiet monastery nestled among the hills, a novice monk struggled to carry 2 buckets of water up a steep path. The task seemed simple enough: 2 buckets, a rope, a journey from the river to the monastery. But for this young monk, the challenge was insurmountable. The buckets were heavy, the rope cut into his hands, and every few steps, water splashed out, leaving a trail of failure behind him. The more he stumbled, the more frustrated he became. Watching from afar, a senior monk noticed the novice's plight and approached. Instead of chastising him for his clumsiness, the elder monk took one of the buckets and carried it alongside him. They walked together, step by step, without a single word of reproach. By the time they reached the monastery, the novice not only succeeded in the task, but also learned a quiet lesson in grace and resilience. This story holds a profound truth. It is easy to demand perfection from others, especially when we hold ourselves to high standards. Yet, the wisdom of the senior monk teaches us that compassion and understanding are just as important as striving for excellence. Each of us walks a unique path, shaped by different experiences, strengths, and limitations. To expect others to match our pace or mirror our abilities is to misunderstand the diversity of human journeys. The The tension between holding oneself to high standards and offering grace to others often emerges in everyday interactions. I once worked on a project with a colleague who struggled to meet deadlines. As someone who prides myself on discipline and efficiency, I initially felt frustrated, even judgmental. Why couldn't they manage their time better? But then I paused to reflect on the situation. This colleague was balancing personal challenges I hadn't been aware of, a sick parent, financial stress, and self-doubt. My frustration dissolved into empathy. Instead of criticism, I offered support, asking how I could help lighten their load. The shift was transformative, not just for them but for me. The project was completed successfully, but more importantly, the act of extending grace deepened our trust and connection. Buddhist philosophy often reminds us that striving for personal excellence is a noble pursuit, but it must be tempered with compassion. The Buddha himself exemplified this balance. He encouraged his disciples to walk the Eightfold Path with diligence, to cultivate right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Yet, he never imposed rigid expectations, understanding that each disciple's journey toward enlightenment was unique. When one monk fell asleep during meditation, instead of reprimanding him, the Buddha gently reminded him to practice mindfulness at his own pace. This blend of high standards and gentle understanding is what allows growth to flourish. Demanding excellence from oneself is an act of self-respect. It is a commitment to honor your potential, to show up fully for your responsibilities and aspirations. But excellence does not mean perfection. It means showing up with integrity, effort, and a willingness to learn from mistakes. When you hold yourself to this kind of standard, you inspire others, not through demands but through example. Excellence, when pursued with humility, becomes a quiet force that uplifts those around you. At the same time, extending grace to others is an act of shared humanity. It acknowledges that we are all imperfect, all learning, and all carrying burdens that may not be visible. Imagine a world where every mistake was met with understanding rather than judgment. How much more willing would people be to take risks, to grow, and to share their authentic selves? Grace creates an environment where growth is possible because it removes the fear of failure. One of the most beautiful aspects of this principle is how it transforms relationships. A close friend of mine once shared a story about her father, a self-made man who built a successful business through hard work and perseverance. He expected the same dedication from his children, but always balanced his high expectations with unconditional support. When my friend struggled with a career decision, her father didn't push her to achieve his version of success. Instead, he listened patiently and reminded her, "Your path is your own. Take your time." That simple act of grace gave her the confidence to navigate her challenges on her terms, knowing she had his support no matter what. This dual approach of holding oneself to high standards while extending compassion to others is also a reflection of the Buddhist concept of metta, or loving kindness. Metta encourages us to cultivate goodwill not only toward ourselves but toward all beings. It teaches that true strength lies not in demanding perfection from others, but in meeting them where they are, with an open heart and a willingness to help. There's a subtle but profound energy that comes from embodying this balance. When you demand excellence of yourself, you raise the bar for what is possible. You show others what commitment, discipline, and purpose look like. Yet, when you offer grace to others, you create space for connection, trust, and mutual growth. These two forces, excellence and grace, are not opposites but complementary. Together, they create a life that is both driven and compassionate. Reflecting on this, I've found that the times I've been most inspired by others were not when they were flawless, but when they combined their strengths with kindness. A mentor who once pushed me to deliver my best work also sat with me during moments of doubt, offering encouragement without judgment. Their ability to balance high expectations with deep empathy left an indelible mark on my life. This principle is not just about what you do, but how you approach life. Striving for personal excellence is a way of honoring your potential, while offering grace to others is a way of honoring theirs. Together, these actions create a ripple effect, fostering an environment where growth and compassion coexist. Just as the senior monk helped the novice carry water, your willingness to walk alongside others, even when they struggle, can transform not only their journey but yours as well. In the end, The most fulfilling paths are those where we demand the best of ourselves while uplifting others with understanding and grace. This balance, rooted in the teachings of Buddhism, allows us to live with integrity, purpose, and an open heart. And as we navigate the complexities of our shared human experience, it reminds us that we are not alone, that every step, no matter how steep, is made lighter when taken together. See every interaction as a learning opportunity. Imagine walking into a room filled with strangers. Some greet you warmly, others barely acknowledge you, and a few seem to go out of their way to challenge you. It's easy to categorize these interactions as good or bad, to hold on to the joy of kind exchanges while letting frustrating ones sour your mood. But what if every single person in that room had something valuable to teach you? This is the heart of the Buddhist principle that views every interaction as a learning opportunity. In Buddhist philosophy, each encounter is a mirror reflecting something back to us: our strengths, our weaknesses, our fears, or our capacity for love and patience. The people who test us, irritate us, or even hurt us are often the ones who offer the greatest lessons. This perspective shifts our focus from external judgment to internal growth, turning even the most unpleasant moments into opportunities for transformation. Consider the story of Steve Jobs. Known for his exacting standards and sometimes abrasive personality, Jobs had a knack for seeing lessons in even the harshest criticism. During the development of the first iPhone, engineers and designers often found themselves at the receiving end of Jobs' relentless critiques. But instead of dismissing feedback or defending subpar ideas, he pushed his team and himself to learn and innovate. One famous example was the iPhone's glass screen. Initially, the team proposed plastic for its durability. Jobs rejected it, insisting on glass despite the technical challenges. Criticism came from all sides, yet Jobs saw an opportunity to refine the product. Today, that glass screen is iconic, a testament to how embracing feedback, even when it's uncomfortable, can lead to groundbreaking results. This mindset requires humility, a willingness to acknowledge that no matter how much we know, there is always more to learn. It also demands patience, particularly when the lessons come from difficult interactions. I once worked with a manager who seemed impossible to please. Every idea I presented was met with skepticism, every solution dissected. At first, I resented him, viewing his criticism as a personal attack. But over time, I realized his feedback wasn't about tearing me down. It was about pushing me to think more critically. The skills I developed during that time became invaluable, not just in my career, but in how I approached problem solving in all areas of life. This idea of finding value in every interaction extends beyond professional settings. Think of the last time someone cut you off in traffic or snapped at you in a grocery store. Our instinct in such moments is often to react with anger or frustration. But what if instead you paused and asked, "What is this moment teaching me?" Perhaps it's an opportunity to practice patience, or to recognize the other person's stress rather than take their behavior personally. Suddenly, the experience shifts from being a source of irritation to a moment of growth. Even the smallest encounters carry lessons. A barista's cheerful smile might remind you of the power of kindness. A child's curiosity could inspire you to see the world with fresh eyes. Each interaction, no matter how fleeting, is a thread in the fabric of your personal development. The key is to approach these moments with openness and curiosity, asking not just what others are offering, but what you can give in return. The Buddha himself often spoke of life as a vast interconnected web where every being plays a role in our awakening. In one of his teachings, he described a traveler who encountered 3 bricklayers. When asked what they were doing, the first replied, "I'm laying bricks." The second said, "I'm building a wall." But the third answered, "I'm constructing a temple." This simple parable illustrates how perspective shapes experience. The bricklayers were engaged in the same task, but only one saw the broader purpose. Similarly, when we view every interaction as a step towards something greater, be it wisdom, compassion, or self-awareness, we elevate the ordinary into the extraordinary. The challenge, of course, lies in staying mindful during difficult interactions. It's easy to appreciate the lessons of kind and supportive exchanges, but far harder to find value in conflict or negativity. Yet, these moments often hold the richest insights. A friend once confided in me about a particularly painful breakup. At first, she was consumed by anger and grief, questioning her worth and blaming her partner. But as time passed, she began to see the relationship for what it was, a mirror reflecting her fears of abandonment and her tendency to ignore red flags. This realization didn't erase the pain, but it gave it purpose, transforming heartbreak into a deeper understanding of herself. To adopt this mindset, start by reframing how you perceive challenges. When faced with conflict, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I learn from this?" This shift in perspective doesn't eliminate difficulty but changes how you engage with it. You stop being a passive recipient of life's ups and downs and become an active participant in your own growth. There's a profound sense of empowerment that comes from seeing every interaction as a teacher. It allows you to navigate life with curiosity rather than defensiveness, to approach others with empathy rather than judgment. You begin to see the beauty in diversity, not just of culture and perspective, but of experience itself. Each person, whether they inspire or challenge you, becomes part of your journey, shaping you in ways that might not be immediately apparent but are always meaningful. This approach also fosters gratitude. When you recognize the lessons in every interaction, you start to appreciate the role others play in your life. The colleague who challenges your ideas, the stranger who tests your patience, even the friend who disappoints you, all become contributors to your growth. Gratitude doesn't mean condoning bad behavior or ignoring boundaries. It means honoring the value of every experience, even when it's uncomfortable. As you move through life, imagine each person you meet as a teacher. Some will teach you through their kindness, others through their mistakes or flaws. All have something to offer if you're willing to look beyond the surface. And as you embrace this perspective, you'll find that even the most mundane encounters become opportunities for transformation. Every interaction, no matter how small, is a chance to learn, grow, and deepen your connection to the world around you. This is the power of seeing life through the lens of curiosity and gratitude. A power that transforms not just how you engage with others, but how you understand yourself. Emotions are temporary, let them pass. There's a quiet but profound truth in understanding that emotions, no matter how intense, are fleeting. Anger, sadness, fear, even joy, they rise within us, peak, and eventually fall away like waves crashing against the shore. Yet, in the moment, emotions can feel overwhelming, as if they will consume us forever. The teachings of Buddhism offer a gentle reminder. Observe your emotions without clinging to them, and they will naturally pass. Imagine standing on a beach, watching the waves roll in. Some are small and barely touch your toes. Others are massive, crashing with a force that feels almost threatening. The instinct is to brace yourself, to push back against the tide or run from it. But resisting the ocean's natural rhythm is futile. The same is true of our emotions. They come and go, their power diminished when we stop fighting them and instead allow them to simply be. I once had a friend who described her anxiety as a storm cloud hovering just above her head. On particularly hard days, she would feel the weight of it pressing down, convinced it would never lift. Then, during a mindfulness retreat, she was introduced to the idea of emotions as passing waves. The teacher asked her to close her eyes and observe her anxiety, not as an enemy, but as a curious visitor. "What shape does it take?" the teacher asked. "Does it have a color? A temperature?" At first, the exercise felt strange, even uncomfortable. But as she continued, my friend noticed something extraordinary. The anxiety began to shift. It was no longer an immovable weight, but a dynamic sensation that ebbed and flowed. That realization was liberating. The anxiety didn't disappear completely, but she no longer felt trapped by it. She had learned to ride the wave instead of drowning in it. This practice of observing emotions without judgment is central to Buddhist mindfulness. It doesn't ask us to suppress what we feel or pretend that difficult emotions don't exist. Instead, it invites us to meet those emotions with curiosity and compassion. Anger, for instance, often carries a message. Maybe it's pointing to a boundary that's been crossed or an unmet need. By sitting with the anger, acknowledging its presence, and letting it run its course, we give ourselves the space to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. I recall a time when anger got the better of me. A project I had poured my heart into was criticized harshly, and I felt the heat of defensiveness rising. My first instinct was to fire back, to defend myself, to push the wave of anger outward. But then I paused and remembered the metaphor of the waves. Instead of reacting, I took a deep breath and sat with the feeling. I noticed how the anger felt in my body, the tightness in my chest, the tension in my jaw. I didn't try to push it away or justify it. I simply observed, and slowly, the wave subsided. In its place came a sense of clarity. The criticism wasn't personal. It was an opportunity to improve. That moment taught me that emotions lose their grip when we stop fueling them with resistance. Sadness, too, can feel infinite when we're in its grip. The Buddha spoke of suffering as an inherent part of life, but he also taught that clinging to our emotions, trying to hold on to happiness or resist sadness, only amplifies that suffering. I once met someone who described grief as a river. After losing her partner, she said, she spent months trying to dam the river, afraid that if she let the sadness flow, it would sweep her away completely. But the more she resisted, the more the grief seemed to grow, pressing against the barriers she had built. It wasn't until she allowed herself to feel the full depth of her sorrow that the pressure eased. The river didn't drown me, she said. It carried me. This practice of allowing emotions to flow can be supported by simple mindfulness techniques. When overwhelmed, pause and take a deep breath. Anchor yourself in the present moment by noticing your surroundings, the texture of the chair beneath you, the sound of a bird outside, the rhythm of your breath. Remind yourself, this too shall pass. These small acts of mindfulness ground you, creating a sense of stability even as the waves of emotion move through you. Joy, too, is fleeting, and that's not something to fear. Recognizing the impermanence of positive emotions doesn't diminish their value. It enhances it. When we understand that joy is temporary, we savor it more fully, appreciating it for the gift it is. Imagine holding a sparkler on a summer night. You know the light will fade, but that knowledge makes its glow even more beautiful. The same is true for moments of happiness. By staying present with them, we experience their richness without clinging or trying to make them last forever. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't require us to change our emotions, only our relationship with them. We don't have to fix anger or cure sadness or chase happiness. We simply have to witness them, trusting in their impermanence. This perspective is deeply empowering. It frees us from the fear of being stuck in any one emotional state and allows us to engage with life more fully, knowing that every experience is part of the ebb and flow. Buddhist teachings often use the image of clouds passing through the sky to describe emotions. The sky itself is vast, unchanging, and unaffected by the weather. Storms may roll in, clouds may gather, but they always pass, revealing the clear blue sky once again. When we identify with the sky rather than the clouds, we begin to see our emotions for what they are: transient, shifting, and ultimately harmless. This doesn't mean ignoring or minimizing what we feel, but holding space for those feelings without becoming consumed by them. In my own practice, I found immense comfort in this metaphor. On days when frustration or sadness looms large, I close my eyes and picture myself as the sky, expansive and steady. The emotions are clouds, moving across my awareness but never defining me. This visualization creates a sense of distance, reminding me that I am not my emotions. I am the observer of them. As you cultivate the habit of letting emotions pass, you may notice a deeper sense of peace taking root. Life's inevitable ups and downs become less overwhelming because you trust in their impermanence. You find yourself responding to challenges with greater calm and resilience, no longer swept away by every wave. This isn't about suppressing what you feel or pretending to be unaffected. It's about meeting each moment with equanimity and grace. In the end, the wisdom of impermanence reminds us that emotions, like all things, are part of the ever-changing flow of life. By embracing this truth, we free ourselves from the struggle of clinging or resisting. We learn to ride the waves with an open heart, trusting that, no matter how stormy the seas, the calm will always return. And in that trust lies the essence of true peace. Build emotional invincibility. Imagine standing in the midst of a chaotic storm. The winds are howling, rain lashes against your face, and debris whirls around you. Yet, at the center of the storm, there's a stillness, a quiet place untouched by the chaos. That stillness represents emotional invincibility, the unshakable peace that comes when you realize no one can hurt you unless you allow it. It's not about shutting down your emotions or pretending you're impervious to pain. It's about mastering your responses and cultivating a sense of inner strength that no external force can disturb. The Dalai Lama embodies this concept with extraordinary grace. Despite losing his homeland, enduring exile, and witnessing the suffering of his people, he remains a beacon of joy and compassion. How does someone face such profound loss without succumbing to bitterness or despair? The Dalai Lama's resilience lies in his understanding of emotional invincibility. He doesn't deny the pain of his circumstances, but he refuses to let that pain control his inner world. Instead of reacting with anger or hatred, he chooses forgiveness and understanding. His ability to rise above his circumstances demonstrates that emotional strength comes not from avoiding suffering, but from transforming it. This idea challenges the common belief that external events or other people's actions have the power to dictate our feelings. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, "They made me angry," or "This situation ruined my day." But if you pause and examine those statements, you'll see they place control of your emotions in someone else's hands. The truth is, no one can make you feel anything without your consent. The initial sting of betrayal or frustration may be unavoidable, but what happens next, whether that pain lingers or dissipates, is entirely up to you. I remember a time when I felt deeply betrayed by someone I trusted. Their actions were hurtful, and for days I replayed the events in my mind, letting anger fester. It felt as though their betrayal had stolen my peace. Then I came across a quote that shifted my perspective. You can't control someone's actions, but you can control how much you let those actions affect your peace. It was a revelation. I realized I had been giving this person's behavior more power than it deserved. By holding on to anger, I was prolonging my suffering. The moment I chose to let go, not for their sake but for mine, I felt a weight lift. The situation didn't change, but my relationship to it did. I had reclaimed my power. Emotional invincibility isn't about denying or suppressing your feelings. Anger, sadness, and frustration are natural, even necessary, parts of the human experience. But the goal is to feel those emotions without being consumed by them. Think of it like holding a hot coal. Anger and resentment are the coal. If you hold on too tightly, you'll get burned. Emotional mastery means recognizing the coal for what it is, then choosing to set it down before it harms you. This practice requires mindfulness and self-awareness. When faced with a difficult situation, start by pausing. Take a deep breath and acknowledge what you're feeling without judgment. Instead of reacting impulsively, ask yourself, what's within my control right now? Often, the answer lies in your response. For instance, if someone insults you, you can't control their words, but you can control whether you take those words to heart. Choosing not to engage with their negativity is an act of strength, not weakness. The Buddhist concept of equanimity is closely tied to emotional invincibility. Equanimity is the ability to remain calm and balanced regardless of external circumstances. It's like being a mountain. No matter how fierce the winds or how heavy the rain, the mountain stands firm. This doesn't mean you're indifferent or unfeeling. It means you're anchored in a deeper sense of peace that external events cannot shake. Achieving equanimity takes practice, but each small step builds resilience. One practical way to cultivate emotional invincibility is through reflection. At the end of each day, take a few moments to review any situations that stirred strong emotions. Ask yourself, did I respond in a way that aligned with my values? Did I let someone else's actions control my inner state? Over time, this habit helps you recognize patterns and strengthens your ability to respond intentionally rather than react impulsively. The journey toward emotional invincibility also involves cultivating compassion for yourself and for others. It's important to acknowledge that people often act out of their own pain or ignorance. When someone lashes out or behaves unfairly, their actions are more about their inner struggles than about you. Understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps you detach from it. You can choose to respond with empathy or simply walk away, but either way, you retain your peace. This mindset extends to how you treat yourself. Emotional mastery isn't about never feeling hurt or upset. It's about allowing those emotions to pass without turning them into self-criticism. When you experience a setback or make a mistake, resist the urge to berate yourself. Instead, remind yourself that growth comes through challenges, and every stumble is an opportunity to learn. The transformative power of emotional invincibility lies in its ability to free you from external control. Imagine walking through life with the assurance that no matter what happens, your inner peace remains intact. This doesn't mean life becomes easy or that you won't face adversity. It means you're no longer at the mercy of those adversities. You respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. You choose forgiveness over resentment, understanding over judgment, and peace over turmoil. As you practice emotional invincibility, you'll notice a profound shift in how you experience the world. Situations that once felt overwhelming lose their power. People who once frustrated or hurt you no longer dictate your state of mind. You begin to see challenges not as threats but as opportunities to strengthen your resilience. And perhaps most importantly, you discover that true strength doesn't come from avoiding pain but from transforming it into wisdom and compassion. Emotional invincibility is not about perfection. It's a practice, a journey of learning to navigate life's inevitable ups and downs with grace. By mastering your responses and choosing peace over reactivity, you build an inner fortress, one that no storm can penetrate. And within that fortress lies the essence of freedom, a freedom that allows you to move through the world with unshakable confidence and clarity. Master acceptance. Imagine holding tightly to a rope, your hands blistering and raw, as someone on the other end pulls with equal force. The pain intensifies the longer you hold on, but letting go feels like surrendering control. Acceptance is that act of releasing the rope, not giving up, but choosing peace over struggle. It's a concept central to Buddhism, a key to inner harmony that transforms how we face life's inevitable challenges. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity or apathy. It means embracing what cannot be changed and focusing your energy on what you can. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning offers a profound example of the power of acceptance. As a survivor of Nazi concentration camps, Frankl endured unimaginable suffering. Yet, he refused to let despair define him. Instead of resisting the brutal reality of his imprisonment, a reality he couldn't change, he chose to find meaning within it. He realized that while he had no control over the external conditions, he had full control over his inner response. By focusing on small acts of dignity and hope, Frankl discovered a purpose that sustained him, even in the darkest of times. His story is a testament to how acceptance can unlock resilience and transform suffering into strength. At its core, acceptance is about aligning with reality rather than fighting against it. Life is filled with unexpected twists, loss, disappointment, failure. These moments often feel like waves crashing against us, pulling us under. The instinct is to resist, to push back against the tide. But resistance only amplifies the pain. Acceptance, on the other hand, is like floating with the current, allowing it to carry you forward without losing yourself in the process. I once witnessed this principle in action during a friend's battle with a chronic illness. For years, she fought her diagnosis, railing against the unfairness of it all. She clung to the hope that sheer willpower could undo her condition. But the more she resisted, the more exhausted and frustrated she became. One day, during a mindfulness retreat, she encountered the concept of acceptance. At first, it felt like a betrayal, as if accepting her illness meant giving up. But gradually, she realized it wasn't about surrendering to the illness, but about embracing the reality of her situation so she could navigate it with clarity. By accepting what she couldn't change, she freed herself to focus on what she could, managing her symptoms, cultivating joy in small moments, and deepening her relationships. Her transformation was remarkable, not because her circumstances improved, but because her relationship with them shifted. Buddhism teaches that much of our suffering arises from attachment, the desire for things to be different from how they are. When we cling to expectations, outcomes, or control, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Acceptance is the antidote to this attachment. It doesn't mean we stop striving for growth or improvement. It means we stop resisting the present moment as it is. This distinction is crucial. Acceptance isn't about passively resigning yourself to fate. It's about making peace with reality so you can act from a place of strength and clarity. Consider the simple yet powerful question: what can I control in this moment? When life doesn't go your way, this question becomes a compass. It directs your energy away from futile resistance and toward constructive action. For instance, if you're stuck in traffic, no amount of frustration will clear the road. But by accepting the delay, you can shift your focus, perhaps using the time to listen to a podcast, call a friend, or simply enjoy a moment of stillness. This practice might seem small, but its implications are profound. Each time you choose acceptance over resistance, you reclaim your peace. One of the most challenging aspects of acceptance is letting go of the illusion of control. It's comforting to believe we can dictate the course of our lives, but reality often has other plans. This truth hit me hard when I faced a career setback that felt like a personal failure. I had poured my heart into a project, only to see it fall apart due to circumstances beyond my control. At first, I resisted the outcome, replaying the situation in my mind and imagining all the ways it could have gone differently. But the more I clung to those thoughts, the more trapped I felt. It wasn't until I asked myself, what can I learn from this, that I began to let go. Acceptance didn't erase the disappointment, but it opened the door to new possibilities, paths I hadn't considered because I was too fixated on what I had lost. Acceptance also requires self-compassion. Often, our resistance isn't just to external circumstances, but to our own imperfections and failures. We hold ourselves to impossible standards, berating ourselves for every misstep. But what if we treated ourselves with the same kindness we'd offer a friend? What if we accepted our flaws as part of being human? This shift doesn't mean settling for less or avoiding accountability. It means recognizing that growth comes from embracing all parts of ourselves, not just the polished ones. The practice of acceptance is beautifully illustrated in the Buddhist concept of anicca, or impermanence. Everything in life is transient: joy, sorrow, success, failure. When we resist this truth, we create suffering. But when we accept impermanence, we free ourselves to fully experience each moment without clinging or aversion. Imagine holding a butterfly in your hand. You wouldn't grip it tightly, fearing its flight. You'd hold it gently, marveling at its beauty while it's there. Acceptance invites us to hold life this way, appreciating its fleeting nature without trying to control it. This mindset doesn't mean we won't face challenges or pain. It means we approach those experiences with a sense of openness rather than resistance. When you lose a loved one, acceptance doesn't erase the grief, but it allows you to honor their memory without being consumed by regret. When a dream doesn't materialize, acceptance doesn't diminish your effort, but it helps you pivot toward new opportunities. This is the power of acceptance. It transforms obstacles into stepping stones and pain into wisdom. As you integrate acceptance into your daily life, you'll notice subtle but profound changes. Situations that once felt overwhelming become more manageable. Relationships deepen because you're no longer trying to control others, but meeting them where they are. Most importantly, you cultivate an inner peace that isn't dependent on external circumstances. This peace isn't a denial of life's challenges, but a testament to your ability to navigate them with grace. The beauty of acceptance is that it's always within your reach. You don't need perfect circumstances or extraordinary strength to practice it. You simply need the willingness to let go of resistance and embrace the moment as it is. With each act of acceptance, you align more deeply with the flow of life, discovering that even in its unpredictability, there is a profound and enduring peace. Find strength in detachment. Imagine holding a delicate clay cup in your hands. It's beautifully crafted, smooth to the touch, and you treasure it deeply. One day, as you admire it, the cup slips, shattering into pieces on the ground. The loss stings, not just because the cup is gone, but because of the meaning you attach to it. A monk once used this simple metaphor to teach his disciples the value of detachment. He took his favorite cup, held it up, and said, "I enjoy this cup while it lasts, but in my heart, I know it is already broken." By embracing the impermanence of the cup, he freed himself from the pain of losing it. This wasn't indifference, it was freedom. Detachment often carries a misunderstood connotation, as if it requires coldness or a lack of care. But in Buddhist philosophy, detachment isn't about distancing yourself from life or denying joy. It's about engaging with life fully, while understanding that nothing lasts forever. Not possessions, not achievements, not even relationships. This understanding allows you to love and appreciate deeply without being controlled by fear of loss. The strength of detachment lies in the ability to live with open hands. Consider the pursuit of success. Many people tie their happiness to reaching specific goals, a promotion, a financial milestone, or recognition. These achievements, while fulfilling, are fleeting. If your happiness is tied solely to outcomes, you risk feeling unmoored when circumstances shift. Detachment, however, shifts the focus from the result to the process. It's not about abandoning ambition, but about finding joy in the effort itself. When you work hard, not to gain but to grow, success becomes a byproduct rather than the sole measure of worth. I remember a friend who spent years striving for a leadership role in her company. She poured her heart into her work, believing that the title would bring her validation. When the promotion went to someone else, she was devastated, questioning her value and doubting her path. During this time, she came across the concept of detachment. Gradually, she shifted her mindset from obsessing over the outcome to appreciating her journey. She began to see her skills, relationships, and growth as valuable, independent of the title she sought. Paradoxically, once she let go of the need for validation, she flourished and other opportunities opened up. Her happiness was no longer tethered to external recognition, but rooted in her own sense of purpose. Detachment extends beyond career aspirations. Think of the material possessions we accumulate: the house, the car, the latest gadget. These things bring comfort and enjoyment, but they are impermanent by nature. When we attach our happiness to them, we invite anxiety, the fear of loss, the constant craving for more. The monk's shattered cup reminds us that impermanence is inevitable. By embracing it, we can enjoy what we have without being enslaved by it. You don't have to renounce your belongings, but you can practice holding them lightly, knowing they don't define you. Relationships, too, benefit from detachment. This might sound counterintuitive because love is often equated with deep attachment. But true love, grounded in detachment, allows freedom. It means loving someone not because they complete you or fulfill your expectations, but because you value who they are. When you detach from the need to control or cling to a person, your love becomes less conditional and more enduring. This is not about caring less, but about caring with clarity and respect for both yourself and the other. I once knew a couple who embodied this principle. They had been married for decades, yet their relationship felt light, unburdened by unrealistic demands. When asked their secret, they shared that they loved each other deeply but did not cling. "We don't complete each other," the wife said. "We complement each other." They celebrated each other's individuality and allowed space for growth, understanding that their bond was strongest when it wasn't suffocating. Their detachment didn't diminish their connection, it deepened it. Practicing detachment starts with reflection. Take a moment to identify areas where your happiness feels tied to external factors: a job, a relationship, a goal, or even an ideal version of yourself. Ask yourself, would I still feel whole if this were taken away? This question isn't meant to provoke fear, but to encourage awareness. The more you recognize where attachment has taken root, the more freedom you gain to live authentically. A helpful exercise is to visualize letting go. Picture yourself holding the thing you're attached to: a dream, a possession, a relationship. Feel its weight in your hands. Now, imagine setting it down gently, not out of rejection, but out of trust. Trust that your worth is not diminished by its absence, and that life continues to flow, bringing new experiences and opportunities. This practice can feel uncomfortable at first, but with time, it cultivates a profound sense of peace. Detachment is closely linked to the Buddhist principle of anicca, or impermanence. The Buddha taught that clinging to the transient leads to suffering. By recognizing the impermanence of all things, we free ourselves from this cycle. This doesn't mean we can't enjoy life's pleasures. It means we don't hold them so tightly that their loss breaks us. Like the monk and his cup, we can appreciate beauty without fearing its eventual end. There's immense strength in this perspective. When you detach, you become resilient. The highs and lows of life no longer define you. Success doesn't inflate your ego, and failure doesn't crush your spirit. You approach life with equanimity, understanding that every moment, whether joyful or painful, is part of the greater flow. As you practice detachment, you may notice that your relationships improve, your goals feel more fulfilling, and your sense of self deepens. You stop chasing happiness and start experiencing it in the present. Detachment isn't about giving up. It's about letting go of the need to control what cannot be controlled. In doing so, you discover a freedom that allows you to love, work, and live with authenticity and grace. Ultimately, detachment is a practice of the heart. It teaches us to hold life lightly, with both hands open, ready to give and receive. It invites us to find strength not in what we possess, but in who we are. And in that strength, we uncover a peace that no loss or change can take away. Make self-care a priority. Imagine a candle that burns brightly, lighting up everything around it. But without care, the wax dwindles and eventually the flame fades. This is the essence of self-care. Nurturing yourself so you can continue to shine, not only for your own well-being but also for those around you. In a world that glorifies hustle and sacrifice, prioritizing self-care often feels selfish. Yet, Buddhist philosophy and modern mindfulness teachings remind us that tending to ourselves is not a luxury but a necessity. Buddhism teaches the importance of balance, particularly the middle path, a life that avoids the extremes of self-indulgence and self-denial. Self-care embodies this principle. It isn't about pampering yourself at the expense of discipline, nor is it about pushing yourself to the brink in pursuit of success. It's about finding harmony between effort and rest, discipline and compassion, doing and being. This balance is what allows resilience to flourish. Arianna Huffington, a modern advocate for mindfulness, offers a compelling example of how transformative self-care can be. At the height of her career, Huffington collapsed from exhaustion, hitting her head on her desk and waking up in a pool of blood. That moment forced her to reevaluate her life. She realized that her relentless drive for success, untempered by rest or reflection, was unsustainable. Her recovery led her to champion self-care as a cornerstone of meaningful success. She began incorporating meditation, proper sleep, and clear boundaries into her routine, practices that not only healed her but also inspired millions through her work. The essence of self-care lies in intentionality. It's not about doing less, it's about doing what truly serves you. Start by asking yourself, what nourishes me? What drains me? This awareness is the foundation of building a routine that supports your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. For some, self-care might mean a daily meditation practice, grounding the mind and body in stillness. For others, it could be journaling, allowing thoughts and emotions to flow freely onto the page. What matters is not the activity itself, but the intention behind it, a commitment to prioritize your health and happiness. I once worked with a colleague who embodied the antithesis of self-care. He was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, skipping meals and brushing off fatigue with caffeine and determination. At first, his relentless pace seemed admirable, a testament to his dedication. But over time, the cracks began to show. His focus wavered, his creativity dimmed, and his patience frayed. Eventually, he burned out, leaving him physically and emotionally depleted. Reflecting on his experience, he admitted that he had been so focused on meeting external demands that he ignored his internal needs. His recovery was slow, but it started with small acts of self-care, regular meals, unplugged evenings, and moments of mindfulness. These changes didn't just restore his energy, they renewed his sense of purpose. Self-care also involves setting boundaries, a practice that many find difficult but essential. Think about the last time you said yes to something you didn't want to do. Perhaps it was out of guilt or fear of disappointing someone. Each time we overextend ourselves, we chip away at our energy and well-being. Learning to say no is an act of self-respect, a recognition that your time and energy are finite. This doesn't mean shutting people out or avoiding responsibility. It means protecting your resources so you can show up fully for the commitments that truly matter. Mindful eating is another powerful form of self-care. In our fast-paced lives, meals often become an afterthought, something to consume quickly between tasks. But eating mindfully transforms a basic necessity into a nourishing ritual. Imagine sitting down to a meal without distractions, savoring each bite, and appreciating the flavors and textures. This simple act grounds you in the present moment and reconnects you with your body. It's a reminder that self-care isn't always about grand gestures. It's often found in the small, intentional choices we make each day. Meditation, too, is a cornerstone of self-care, deeply rooted in Buddhist tradition. It's a practice that allows us to quiet the noise of the external world and tune into our inner landscape. Even a few minutes of meditation each day can have profound effects, reducing stress, increasing clarity, and cultivating a sense of peace. Think of it as a reset button for your mind, a chance to step away from the constant demands of life and simply be. For many, the biggest barrier to self-care is guilt, the belief that taking time for oneself is selfish or indulgent. But consider this: when you neglect your own needs, you eventually run out of energy to give to others. By prioritizing your well-being, you're not just serving yourself. You're creating a foundation from which you can support those around you. It's the same principle as the safety briefing on an airplane. Secure your own oxygen mask first before assisting others. You can't pour from an empty cup. One of the most profound teachings in Buddhism is the concept of metta, or loving kindness. This principle encourages us to extend compassion not only to others, but also to ourselves. Practicing self-care is an act of loving kindness directed inward. It's an acknowledgement that you, too, deserve patience, understanding, and care. This doesn't mean avoiding challenges or shirking responsibility. It means approaching your life with a sense of balance and humanity. Over time, self-care becomes more than a practice. It becomes a mindset. You start to notice the signs of imbalance sooner, whether it's fatigue, irritability, or a lack of focus. You learn to listen to your body and mind, responding with actions that restore harmony. And as you cultivate this habit, you'll find that self-care doesn't take away from your productivity or relationships, it enhances them. When you're well-rested and grounded, you're better equipped to handle challenges and connect meaningfully with others. The beauty of self-care is its adaptability. It doesn't have to look the same for everyone, or even stay the same over time. What matters is that it aligns with your needs and values. Some days, self-care might mean a long walk in nature. Other days, it might mean giving yourself permission to rest without guilt. The key is to approach it with intention and consistency, trusting that each small act contributes to a larger sense of well-being. As you integrate self-care into your life, you'll notice a ripple effect. Your energy will increase, your focus will sharpen, and your relationships will deepen. But perhaps most importantly, you'll cultivate a sense of inner peace that anchors you, no matter what life throws your way. Self-care isn't selfish. It's a gift to yourself and to the world around you. When you prioritize your well-being, you create space for resilience, joy, and connection. And in that space, you'll find the strength to live fully and authentically. Harness the power of gratitude. Imagine a life where every small moment, every fleeting experience, is a reminder of abundance rather than scarcity. Gratitude, in its essence, is the art of seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary. It shifts your focus from what you lack to what you already have, transforming not only your mindset but your entire experience of life. It's a practice rooted in simplicity, yet capable of profound change, a lesson as ancient as it is relevant. Buddhist philosophy emphasizes gratitude as a cornerstone of a fulfilling life. It encourages us to appreciate the impermanence of all things and to see each moment as a gift. When you wake up in the morning and take a breath, that breath is a miracle. When you sit down to a meal, every bite carries the effort of countless beings, from the farmer who grew the food to the sun and rain that nourished it. Gratitude connects you to the interconnected web of existence, grounding you in the present and filling your heart with appreciation. Consider the story of a man who lost everything in a fire: his home, his possessions, his sense of security. For weeks, he grieved, consumed by the magnitude of his loss. Then one morning, as he walked through the charred remains of his house, he noticed a single flower blooming amid the ash. It was small, almost hidden, yet its resilience sparked something within him. In that moment, he felt a deep sense of gratitude, not for what he had lost, but for what remained. That flower became a symbol of renewal, teaching him to focus on the beauty that still existed in his life. Gratitude doesn't deny the reality of pain or hardship. It reframes it. When you face challenges, gratitude invites you to ask, "What can this teach me? How can I grow from this experience?" This doesn't mean forcing positivity or ignoring difficulty. It means acknowledging both the struggle and the lessons it brings. Even in loss, there's often a thread of wisdom, an opportunity to deepen your resilience, compassion, or understanding. Scientific studies back this transformative power of gratitude. Research shows that practicing gratitude improves mental health, reduces stress, and fosters stronger relationships. When you focus on what you're grateful for, your brain releases dopamine and serotonin, the feel-good chemicals that enhance your mood. Over time, this rewiring of the brain creates a positive feedback loop, making it easier to see the good in every situation. Gratitude isn't just an attitude. It's a skill that grows stronger with practice. One of the simplest and most effective ways to cultivate gratitude is through journaling. Each day, take a few moments to write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand gestures or life-changing events. In fact, the smaller and more specific, the better. Maybe it's the warmth of your morning coffee, the sound of laughter, or the way sunlight filters through the trees. By naming these moments, you train your mind to notice and savor them. I remember when I first started keeping a gratitude journal. At the time, life felt overwhelming. Work was demanding, relationships were strained, and I couldn't see a way forward. Writing down 3 things each day felt almost trivial, even forced. But as the days turned into weeks, something shifted. I began to notice the moments of joy I had previously overlooked. A kind word from a colleague, the taste of fresh fruit, the comfort of a favorite song. These moments didn't change my circumstances, but they changed how I saw them. Gratitude became a lifeline, a way to anchor myself in the present and find beauty even amid struggle. Gratitude also has the power to strengthen relationships. When you express appreciation for the people in your life, you create a ripple effect. Think about the last time someone thanked you sincerely. It probably left a lasting impression, deepening your connection with that person. Gratitude fosters empathy and trust, reminding us that we are seen and valued. Whether it's a simple thank you or a heartfelt letter, expressing gratitude can transform your interactions. This practice isn't limited to joyful experiences. Some of the most profound gratitude arises from adversity. I once met someone who, after recovering from a life-threatening illness, spoke about how the experience had reshaped her perspective. "I wouldn't wish it on anyone," she said, "but it taught me to appreciate every day in a way I never had before." Her gratitude wasn't for the illness itself, but for the clarity it brought, the realization that life is precious and worth savoring, even in its imperfection. Gratitude aligns with the Buddhist principle of mindfulness, which teaches us to be fully present in each moment. When you practice gratitude, you're not dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. You're here, now, appreciating what is. This presence creates a sense of peace, reminding you that even amidst chaos, there is always something to be thankful for. One of the most beautiful aspects of gratitude is its accessibility. You don't need wealth, power, or perfect circumstances to practice it. Gratitude is available to everyone, everywhere, at any time. It's as simple as taking a moment to notice the things you often take for granted. The roof over your head, the food on your plate, the breath in your lungs. These small acts of awareness build a foundation of abundance, shifting your focus from what's missing to what's already here. Over time, gratitude becomes more than a practice. It becomes a way of being. You start to see the world through a lens of appreciation, noticing beauty in places you never expected. This doesn't mean life becomes free of challenges, but it does mean those challenges lose some of their weight. Gratitude creates space for joy, even in the midst of difficulty. It reminds you that while life may not be perfect, it is rich, vibrant, and full of moments worth cherishing. As you weave gratitude into your daily life, you'll find that it touches everything. Your relationships grow stronger, your resilience deepens, and your perspective broadens. Gratitude isn't just a tool for finding happiness. It's a way of living that connects you to the present and to the people and experiences that make life meaningful. In embracing gratitude, you embrace life itself with all its complexity, beauty, and impermanence. As we near the end of this journey, I want to ask you something. What resonated with you most today? Was it the power of gratitude to shift your perspective, or the strength that comes from mastering detachment? Maybe it was the idea that every interaction, even the unpleasant ones, can be a lesson. Whatever it was, hold on to it. Let it be your starting point. Life will never stop throwing challenges your way. That much is certain. But what's also certain is your ability to navigate those challenges with grace and clarity. The principles we've discussed today aren't about avoiding life's storms. They're about learning to dance in the rain, to find peace not in the absence of chaos but within it. And here's the beautiful part. Every small step you take, every principle you apply, ripples outward. When you transform yourself, you inspire those around you. Your calm becomes a refuge for others, your gratitude a spark of joy, your acceptance a reminder of what's truly important. So, as we part ways for now, I leave you with one final thought. What is the next small step you can take today? Maybe it's pausing to appreciate the beauty of this very moment, or perhaps it's forgiving someone or yourself. Whatever it is, take that step with intention and trust that you're moving closer to the life you deserve. Until next time, may you find peace in the present, courage for the journey, and joy in the discovery of your own inner strength. Let's walk this path together, one principle, one moment at a time.